So this next season for informatics, we truly believe is going to be the season of artificial intelligence. As Kathleen alluded to, we're seeing it on every news feed, every program, TikTok, wherever you're looking for your media, we're seeing artificial intelligence. So we hope you've had a chance. If you haven't, take a few minutes on the platform, and we have just a really quick, super quick survey. It'll take maybe a minute or two for you to complete. But I think that it's an opportunity for us as nursing leaders to really lead and excel in this area. So this new ecosystem really has what we feel are three main parts. There's a machine learning component, a robotics component, and also an artificial neural network component. Machine learning, how many of you are familiar with machine learning? Okay, some good. So basically you're aware then that machine learning is really learning from existing data, like pulling data from your EMR. It's creating knowledge and awareness about the data that's being pulled, and then it's used to predict outcomes. Kathleen's going to share with us a little bit later more about the different types of artificial intelligence. So how many of you work remotely? Oh, for those online, it's probably 75%. So the statement, and we also have heard this from a variety of different sources, is any job that is remote in front of a computer is an opportunity to be replaced by artificial intelligence. And Kathleen, share what we just heard this week.
Yeah, so this week IBM actually made an announcement that about 8,600 jobs are going to be offloaded to artificial intelligence. So they'll either replace those people with AI somehow, or the people that leave, they will then replace with AI. So I think we just need to be conscious of that. They're the first organization that I've heard actually make that statement. I don't think that people in general are replaceable. I think we should be augmented, but that's a different discussion we'll have.
And so that's exactly why we want to just remind us as a nursing body and as a nursing leadership group that we have the opportunity to influence whether artificial intelligence is substitutable for human labor or augmented. I've taught graduate informatics, but I've also worked for Virginia Tech in the School of Business. And what's very interesting to me is to hear new business students who are looking at going into various disciplines, whether it's human resources, management, finance. And as all of the changes have been coming out online related to artificial intelligence, they're stepping back and saying, whoa, some of the jobs that I thought that I might be doing are really going to change and be changed forever, just like they will for us. You, as an individual, will definitely become irrelevant if you do not stay relevant, and particularly in this new season of artificial intelligence. So why now? Kathleen, why now?
Yeah,
why should we care?
So we should care for a lot of reasons. So there's a lot that's been going on over the last many years. For those of you who have been in the clinical space as nurse informaticists, you know since about the 90s or so, we've been implementing electronic health records as well as other systems. So there's this huge amount of data. It's just enormous. It's exponentially, over time, it has grown. In addition to that, we have more compute power. So if you think about the power of the cloud, there's a significant amount of compute power that you have when you're not just relying on servers in a building somewhere, right? You're actually uploading all that data into the cloud. And then we have this huge amount of innovative algorithms, tools, and frameworks that have been developed over time. And part of that is things like machine learning, predictive analytics, proscriptive analytics, those types of things. So over time, we've kind of seen this growth. And this is kind of like an alignment. In my mind, this is kind of a sentinel moment because we're seeing all of this alignment over time. So we have to ensure as nurse informaticists that we do stay relevant by understanding within our organizations, how are they using the data? Are they in the cloud? Are they looking at building models, et cetera? And then how can we kind of bridge that gap between IT and clinical? Because in my mind, that's kind of our role as nurse informaticists. We also see that we have these rising openings and we have a projected employment of 9% increase by 2030 for these types of roles, right? So there's new roles that have happened. We're going to talk about the Chief of Artificial Intelligence or the Chief Data and AI Officer in a few slides, but I want to talk about one role in particular called the prompt engineer. So for prompt, PROMPT, prompt engineer. Has anyone heard of a prompt engineer? So we have just a couple folks. So if you think of prompt in augmentative or generative AI, the prompt is what you write as you're wanting to get the data or the information out of the system. So in my mind, that's kind of a ripe role for a nurse informaticist because we understand the data, we know what types of things we're trying to find. The prompt engineer the way you write the prompt really helps to influence the information that you get back. And you can rewrite the prompt over and over, so you have to think about that. And then in addition, we know we have to do more with less. We essentially have a rising workforce crisis, especially with our clinicians, with our nurses. We have, by 2030, all of the baby boomers will be seniors, all of them. So now we have this elderly group of individuals that are going to require more health care. We'll have more retirements for nurses from the bedside. So how are we going to help our clinicians essentially do more with less? And how are we going to help them be more effective and more efficient? That's why I kind of say I'm not sure we're going to ever replace anybody, but we can help make their job and their work essentially better. So essentially, what is artificial intelligence? As we look at AI, we know it's an area of computer science that emphasizes the creation of machines they work and act like humans. And I have a little cheat sheet here because there's so much going on. So I'm going to talk about, if you look at artificial intelligence, then we have to go from artificial intelligence to general artificial intelligence. And then from there, we go to large language models, which essentially is what GPT is. So we have GPT, which is your generative pre-trained transformer. And what that is just AI that's built with a ton of data, but it can actually generate new information. So if you think about AI and ML, it really produces what you've put in. So you put in a lot of data, you put in a model, and then it gives you like a predictive something, right? Or a response, right? Some people intentionally will say it's kind of similar to clinical decision support, but we know that it's not. So then when you think about the generative pre-trained model, when you look at like a chat GPT, that's a chat bot that's essentially built with that generative pre-trained model. And the reason why there was so much attention applied to it is that in November, the company called OpenAI actually released ChatGPT out into the wild. And they had over 1 million users in how many days? 5 days. 5. Which is incredible. When you look at everything else, if you look at Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and even the Apple iPhone, none of them had 1 million users in 5 days. So that's why this is such a sentinel moment. And the people that are using it are the doctors and nurses that you were all working with, as well as IT. So that's kind of why we have to make sure that we do stay relevant and that we're aware of these things that are going on. So when we look at, AI for health, we have to look at how are we going to leverage AI and what are the things that it can help us with? Can it help us with diagnosis? Can it help us treat and monitor patients? And, ultimately the nirvana would be, I'm taking care of a patient that has X diagnosis, maybe as a physician or a nurse, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Could I feed that information into a generatively pre-trained model that can kind of give me information back so that I can know the next steps that I need to do in order to take care of my patient? So what are the facts? Oh, it's still mine, sorry. So the facts are, and I got ahead of myself, sorry, Tammy, that it was ChatGPT was released in November of 22, that these generative AI, these models are growing rapidly. We have text, we have images, we have video. Has anyone heard of DALL-E? DALL-E's one of them where you can do like an actual picture, you can tell it exactly what you want. So we have to look at, how do we narrow down AI so that's specific and narrowly focused so that we can actually enact upon it? And know that with this big data growing at 40% each year, and some people would argue that it's going to be even more and more and more, kind of like Moore's Law, where every year it got bigger, bigger, and bigger. We have to be able to adjust and essentially address these different models and understand the data. So as nurse informaticists, you deal with data every day. Are you able to leverage that data into insights and then take those insights into actions? I work with organizations. They can identify through their data the top 5% patients that they have that are highest utilizers, right? Top 5%, they use 80% of all their hospital resources. What they haven't been able to figure out is how do I address that top 5% so they're not overutilizing?